In this class, you cannot have a radical in the denominator. So we're going to have to rationalize the denominator to get rid of our square root in the bottom of our fraction. Here are the steps. Multiply both the top and the bottom of your fraction by your problem square root. Multiply across the top, multiply across the bottom. Break down any square roots that you need to, and then simplify your fraction. At this point, you're only simplifying the numbers that are not part of your square root. Let's do an example. It sounds a little confusing, but it's not terrible when you see it. Rationalize the denominator of 2 square root 5 over 3 square root 6. Okay, this square root 6 is my problem, so I'm going to multiply both the numerator and the denominator by square root 6. If I multiply across the top, the 2 stays on the outside, and 5 and 6 are both under my square root, so I can multiply them together to get 30. In the denominator, the 3 stays on the outside, and 6 and 6 are both under my square root, and I get square root 36. Step 3, break down any of your square roots. If I tried to break down square root 30, it's 5 times 6. 6 breaks down into 2 and 3. It doesn't break down any further. There aren't any pairs, so I'm going to leave it as square root 30. In the denominator, you could just realize square root 36 is 6, or if you fully broke it down, you'll see that you have a pair of 3's and a pair of 2's to come out of the square root and nothing left underneath. This is what I end up with when I simplify my square roots. The top doesn't simplify, but square root 36 is 6. 6 times that 3 that was originally out there is 18 in the denominator. Last step, simplify your fraction. Only worry about these numbers that are not part of the square root. You cannot mix square roots and coefficients, so do not try and simplify a fraction. Don't try and include this 30 over 18 and simplify that. But the 2 and the 18, neither one is underneath the square root, so I can simplify that. I can divide a 2 out of both of those numbers, and I'm left with a 1 square root 30 on top and a 9 in the bottom. All right, that is the full steps of what we're doing, but really there's kind of a shortcut here. What you end up doing is, it's the same thing, but it's just not actually writing out all of the mathematical steps. Bring your square root to the top, so square root 6 goes in the top, and drop the square root symbol in the bottom. All right, now multiply and simplify across the top. So 2 stays on the outside, 5 and 6 multiply together underneath. Can you simplify square root 30? We already tried. It doesn't simplify, so it's going to stay square root 30. And then multiply in the denominator 3 times 6. Remember, we dropped this symbol here, so this is just a normal 6. So 3 times 6 is 18. Now, simplify your fraction. Just like before, only worry about the numbers that aren't part of the square root. I can divide a 2 out of both of them, and I'm left with... Same thing, it's not gonna ever give you anything different. Let's do 2 more examples. All right, rationalize the denominator. I'm gonna do the shortcut method for all of these. So bring my square root to the top and drop the symbol in the bottom. So across the top, the 8 stays out of the square root, the 2 stays underneath. Can you simplify square root 2? No. In the bottom, multiply anything together that needs to be multiplied, but there's just now a normal 2 here, so don't have to multiply. And last, simplify this fraction. 8 over 2, again, this was by an accident. It's not always going to be a 2 that you can divide out. But again, I can divide out a 2. 8 over 2 is just 4, or 4 over 1 if you want to leave it as a fraction. And don't forget, your square root 2 stays as is. Don't mess with it. Leave it as a square root 2. And last example, bring your square root to the top, drop the symbol in the bottom, multiply across the top, and simplify your square root if you can. Multiply across the bottom. Can you simplify this fraction? No, there's not a number that I can take out of both numbers. So my final answer is just the 5 square root 6 over 12.